Yeah, we can jump on in. I'll keep monitoring everything for everybody. Welcome to everyone coming to us from Eventbrite. We are Ama La Vida. We are a life, health and wellness, leadership, and career coaching company. And my name is Justice. I'm a relationship strategist here at the team. And what that means is if you decide to have a conversation with one of us to explore how our services could help benefit you and be a resource, generally speaking, you'll end up on my calendar, if not one of my team members' calendars. And we'll use our time together that's complementary to really do a deeper dive into your current situation, your goals. And then we're going to make a recommendation of a coach or a team of coaches that we work with that are best suited to help you accomplish those, given their background, personality, and or skill sets. So if you have any interest in scheduling a conversation with me now, if you can think of something front of mind, I'll go ahead and drop my link here. It's kind of first come, first serve, so feel free to jump in there. But other than that, today we have the lovely Coach Jill with us, and she's going to be talking to us about imposter syndrome. So Jill, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thanks, Justice. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited for everyone to be here today. We have a full house. This is great. I love this. I love this. I love this. I kind of feel that imposter syndrome is at least the term is slowly starting to catch on. You know, I feel it especially with my clients and even just having conversations, Justice, like with us and in our team. You know, it's a lot of these things, a lot of these thoughts and these patterns that we see come up and we don't really know what they are, right? We kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit off, a little bit, whatever it might be. But I think by naming it and people recognizing, oh, that's what that feels, that's what that's called. I've been feeling that. I get that. I think it just helps us to actually have something, not really, it's kind of intangible, but something that we can work through, right? The first thing about making any changes is acknowledging what it is that we want to change. So with that, let's go ahead and hop right in. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Here we go. All right, technology, yay. All right, so I am Coach Jill. I'm a certified health and life coach here with La Vida. So a little bit about my journey. I went through my own personal development. Really struggled a lot with body image, self-esteem, disordered eating, just unhealthy habits, and through my own. We have family visiting and they just got here. So apologies if anything gets a little bit wild and crazy over here. But through my own journey, I just recognized that there's so many things that I went through on my own that I wanted to share with other people, because a lot of the stuff that we go through, it's personal and it can kind of be a silent struggle for a really long time, especially if we don't know what actually is going on with us, because we can't ask for help unless we don't know what it is that we need, right? And so through my own journey, I came across coaching, and my whole mission was I didn't want anyone to go through what I had went through on their own. And so that's what I dedicate my life to, was just allowing for coaching. And whether it's life, whether it's health, whether it's anything that, even La Vida has to offer with career leadership, just recognizing that we don't have to go through this alone. We don't have to go through this alone. And, that there's all these resources and people that want to help. So that's where I'm at. That's how I became. That's a very high level view of how I became a coach. But I love it, and it is my passion, is my purpose. All right, and we are La Vida. So for those who do not know, La Vida. So we are a career leadership, life, and health coaching company. So we are kind of a one-stop shop for anything in life you might need. So my focus is the health and wellness and life coaching, but we also, like I said, we have career programming, we have leadership programming. We'll talk a little bit about that towards the end, but that's us. I'm La Vida. All right, so quick overview. This is such a lame slide, but just to, I feel like I have to put this in here. What's imposter syndrome? What are the warning signs? How can we identify that? And we're actually going to go through a few action steps. So if you have something to write with, please do. If you don't, it's fine. I'll actually be sharing the template after. So we'll be good to go there. And then Q&A at the end. Okay, first group chat. So I would love to hear in the chat box, what is your definition or what's your experience with imposter syndrome? what is imposter syndrome? And if you feel comfortable sharing it, when do you notice it come out, or when do you notice it surface the most? Just a quick chat. When I have to deliver something in my job interviews. Yep. Feeling like you don't fit in, don't deserve, undeserving. Yes. Not good enough. Yeah. Work events with people outside, unqualified, not meeting expectations. Feel like you don't know enough. Oof, that was still going through that one. Job search, interviews, new environment. Okay, so change, careers. All right, change is a huge trigger for imposter syndrome. Job search and jobs, my goodness. Feel you on that. All right, feel like you don't know enough. Okay, so I'd like to ask this question, and feel free to keep putting things in the chat box. Comparing myself. Oh, comparison. Oh goodness, I could talk about comparison trap for days. Okay, so thank you all for sharing. Only women on the team. Oh, we will, this webinar mostly for high achieving women. I get that. Okay, thank you all for sharing. And I like to ask these questions, and I like to, kind of get the general consensus, because it helps to get a working definition of what it is we're actually talking about. And knowing that imposter syndrome is so broad that, everyone has their own experience with it. And everyone has their own kind of interpretation, but just recognizing that we're all here, we all have these challenges, we're all here for a reason. Just knowing that we're not alone. All right, so let's dig in. So what is imposter syndrome? So this is just to, I'm going to move this down. So this is just to kind of, again, these are definitions from all of our psychologists, scientists, the researchers. So persistent belief, lack of worth, skills, competence, undeserving of success, love, happiness, raises, attribute accomplishments to chance or luck, self-sabotaging when things are too good. That was a huge red flag for me in my own, recognizing my own journey, recognizing that things would be working really well, and then I would find myself kind of self-sabotaging. So why was that? So again, just understanding, what is imposter syndrome, and also what can it sound like? So a huge part of the coaching that I do, and even any sort of, positive thinking, mindset work, any sort of kind of mindset shifts, we have to recognize that, what we say to ourselves impacts us, but what we say about ourselves hugely impacts us, because what we say about ourselves is just reinforcing those negative thoughts. So just recognizing what we say out loud, right? So I'm curious who I could definitely do a better job, work on this, but I'm curious, is anyone, kind of aware or I've heard like, okay, I have to be conscious or be more aware of how I talk about myself, because that's always a challenge, right? So I got lucky, or not accepting compliments. Who struggles with that? That's a huge thing. If anyone says, "Oh my gosh, great job," oh no, I messed up this and I didn't finish that. They feel sorry for me. It wasn't that good. Nah, it wasn't. Nah, it was fine. I didn't really work that hard on it. Oh, it wasn't too bad. They're just being nice. If I can do it, anyone can. This is just easy. Right? Any of these sounding familiar? Yeah, felt like I faked it till I made it. Oof, I hope that phrase, that like boss babe phrase is long gone, because that fake it till you make it, whoo, that is exhausting. Ooh, I found cognitive behavioral psychology helps address. Ooh, yes, Allison, absolutely. A lot of my coaching tactics come from CBT. It is hugely helpful in rewiring a lot of those thoughts. Interesting. Oh, good question. All right, so I'm gonna track this and save this for the end. Brett, what about if it's genuine humility and not imposter syndrome? Great question. let's save that to the end because that's definitely packed. All of the above. Yes. Everything has to be perfect. Ooh, perfectionism. Ooh, that's a big one. Definitely. Yep. Definitely feel detached from my accomplishments at times. Yeah. Yeah. So I think we've all kind of said that. But one of the biggest things, and maybe one of the, no, I shouldn't say none of this work is really easy, but maybe one of the more tangible things is just to kind of observe how you do talk about yourself, especially in whether it's relationships or whether it's with career. It sounds like a lot of people are here for jobs and in imposterism with their careers. But, just acknowledge or observe, when do you see, right? Recognizing these patterns. When does this surface? When do I feel myself kind of responding or reacting in a way of, I'm not worthy of that praise? Where do you see that? Where do you see that come up? So again, just recognizing, using these as sound bites, using these as red flags of like, okay, let's challenge that. Let's challenge how I'm actually talking about myself. Other patterns to look out for. Now, granted, I actually had several slides on patterns and ways that we talk about ourselves, and I had to take it out because there's a lot, right? Like I said in the beginning, we all have all of these. Look at all of those responses. Imposter syndrome is something that everyone has a different experience with. So it could be in the form of perfectionism. Like I said, hard to accept compliments, apologize out of habits without actually doing something. I have to catch myself all the time. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Even if we're just like walking in public, and someone runs into us, I'm sorry. What are you sorry for? What did you actually do? Right? Apologies out of habit. Gotta stop that. But again, it's this that kind of apologizing. A lot of this stems from I'm in the wrong. I'm not worthy of that. Someone else has to go first, right? I'm prioritizing the other people's experience first because I don't feel that I'm worthy of that. Over preparing to the point of overwhelm. Oh my goodness. This is something else that's really challenging, right? Feeling that I need to over prepare, over study, over prepare for interviews. Ooh, that has definitely backfired on me before. Over preparing for, meetings, anything like that. But to the point where we're stressing out about it, right? Fear of failure. It's a huge thing. Procrastination, never finishing topics, and self-sabotage, right? So these are these patterns to look out for. All right, so my middle name is I'm sorry. I know, Bethany, I feel you. And you know what? A lot of, there's definitely some generational things with like women and, feeling that need to always, put other people first. And then if we have some time at the end, we might take care of ourselves. But oh my goodness, recognizing, again, this is all about, I'm going to keep doing this throughout, just giving these different things that you can actually work on, these action steps. So when you do, so Bethany, great challenge for you. When do you see yourself apologizing? When do you see you're apologizing the most? When you really haven't done anything wrong? Just observe that and see. It's my fault. Oh goodness. Yes, Brian, it's my fault. Taking blame first, right? Taking blame when there's tons of people are thinking that, one huge group project at work failed, but it was a team of 10, but you think you take the blame all for yourself, right? Self-doubt. And I do it to make others feel less uncomfortable. And guess what? We're actually the ones that are feeling uncomfortable, right? It's tricky, but using these as there's not something wrong with us, right? This behavior is learned, right? This is learned. This is learned ways of thinking, learned ways of feeling, learned ways of behaving. But the good thing is that we can unlearn that and relearn new ways of taking care of ourselves. So who's heard this before? One, and who has actually practiced that and embodied this? And if you haven't, it's perfectly fine. But who's heard this? Who's familiar with this? Our thoughts are not true unless we make them true, or our thoughts are not fact unless we make them. Who's heard this before? Just curious. Great. Yeah, so I think we might have heard some sort of form of it. And, it's of course, it's a lot more complex, right? It's not, our thoughts are stemming from something. Our thoughts stem from our beliefs and views. And, but that's a whole other topic. What are the stories we are telling ourselves? Yep. Perception is reality. Yeah, exactly. Yes. What are the stories we are telling ourselves? And then taking it a step further, are those stories actually serving us? What are those stories actually doing for us? So our thoughts are not true unless we make them true. And I bring this up and I want to talk about a little bit more is because we want to just recognize that, yes, our persistent thoughts might stem from a belief or view or something that might have been projected onto us from a really young age. That's part of the work that we get to do. But recognizing that we don't have to listen to those thoughts. We don't actually have to entertain those thoughts. They might seem really overwhelming and really daunting and really heavy, but at the end of the day, we don't actually have to make them true. They're not true unless we actually act on them and make them reality. So there is this nice little, oh, you know what? It's next. This little tactic, it's called TFAR, which I'll get into it in a second. But with these thoughts, we want to challenge them. So this is just kind of, little fluff stuff, but challenge those thoughts. So I'm curious, has anyone ever done this before where you observe your thoughts, write them down, and then you actually challenge them and see which of these are actually true? Which of these are actually true? And if you haven't, perfectly fine. It's part of the work that I get to do with coaching. Well, the point of this practice is we want to observe them without judgment, right? That's hard. That is challenging. Did that with CBT and it was, oh yes. And right. It's crazy to see like, oh my gosh, that sounds kind of a little bit silly. Not all is silly. But even I had one of my clients the other day was just saying, who went on and on about all this stuff. And it was like, oh, a lot of fears and self-doubt. And he was like, wow, when I say that out loud, that sounds ridiculous. How about that? Because everything that stays stuck up here seems so much worse and so much more magnified than it actually is in reality. Oh, awesome. Wow, you guys are, all right. I've done it in a labeling meditation exercise. Ooh, Tatiana, I want to hear more about that later. Labeling meditation exercise sounds fascinating. Yes, I've helped someone make this list and challenge their thoughts. Good. Ooh, Michelle, are you a coach as well? Or therapist? I actually just started doing that for both my thoughts. Ooh, and triggers. Ooh, Odina. Yes, triggers are a huge, yes, triggers are a pretty complex topic, but recognizing, I do that a lot with my clients too. It's just observing those triggers and where are those thoughts, right? Where's the thoughts, feelings, actions, results? Oh, good, Michelle. I love that. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, good. Oh, Byron Katie's The Work has been so helpful. Ooh, okay. Byron Katie, The Work. All right, I'm going to write that down. Thank you, Jerry, for sharing that. I'll make sure to include that in the recap. All right, The Work. Cool. Okay, great. All right, so Anne, I struggle with the idea that once people find out about my ADHD at work, they will fire me or will only make me half-hearted or band-aid attempt to understand. Yeah, I feel that. I see that. And I think that, with those fears, because those are real fears, right? But something that, and we'll get into that, but we want to just actually challenge that. Like if there is evidence, right, that from the past, we want to be able to kind of extract that and dig into that so that we can clear out what those thoughts are that are keeping you in that place of thinking that you might get fired or, whatever it might be, and just clear those out and make way for new ones. But again, much more complex, but thank you for sharing that. I feel that for you. Okay. So again, this whole practice of writing all of these things out, and you can brain dump, just write things out, or when you might feel yourself really overwhelmed and stressed, I do this when I feel really overwhelmed, like, oh my God, my head's going to explode. I probably should do that before I feel like my head's going to explode, but that's kind of like my cue. Okay. Time to write some stuff out. Something is greater than fear. Yes, absolutely. So again, challenging these thoughts. Are these negative things that we're saying to and about ourselves, right? Remember, it's not just what we're saying in our head. It's how we talk about ourselves, right? Are these things actually true? And finding evidence from the past to prove these things wrong Now with imposter syndrome is a little bit more challenging because we can have a mountain of evidence showing that we are worthy and that we are smart enough, but it doesn't always work. I'm going to address that in a little bit. So if you can't find evidence, take action and create new evidence, right? So if you are feeling unworthy or undeserving of a raise or a promotion, and you might not have evidence from the past proving that you are deserving of a promotion, well, what can you actually do? What do you need? So instead of just running away from that as I'm unworthy and I'm not deserving of that, lean into that. What do you feel? What do you need to know? What, maybe there's like a leadership course, leadership coaching. Maybe there is something else that you can do to create that evidence that, you know what, I might not be the most perfect, stellar employee for this promotion, but hey, at least I'm doing the work, right? Because a lot of this, and we'll get into this too, a lot of this is when it comes to imposterism, is that we attach and we connect so much of our achievements and our job and our work and our careers and our labels and our titles and a lot of these things, but we make that as part of our identity, right? We feel really attached to that. And when something disrupts that, we feel it so much deeper because we're so connected to those achievements and especially with with reasons for ambitious people, right? Ambitious people being more prone to imposterism is because we're more likely to take on challenges, challenging jobs, going for those tough interviews or asking for that raise, and it's normal to be insecure at first because we haven't developed that skill yet, but then it becomes even more complex when if we were to master the skills, and then those skills become intuitive, right? So we actually become better at these skills that we first started off with not knowing. And then we think it's so easy that we're just not worthy of that. But that's when we want to take a step back and get the full picture and just be, oh my gosh, actually, I've been doing that for 5 years. That's pretty huge, right? And shifting, we'll get into kind of like flipping the script in different ways you can question that. But again, just really honing in on that, taking that action. Action creates confidence. Prove it to yourself, right? We can take this. It doesn't necessarily, imposterism doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing, right? It could be something that we can actually use for good, which after this little exercise we'll get to as well. So has anyone heard, it's not the sexiest title, and I ask this every time for anyone that has a better title for this or better name for this, but TFAR. We've heard raft, I've heard some other things, but this helps us to address and just to observe, right? We wanted this back to this observing without judgment, observing where these thoughts keep coming up, right? And instead of letting them just stay stuck up there, what can we actually do about it? Because a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about, might not be new. It might just be like, old, kind of run of the mill tactics. But if you're here, you might just not be acting on it, right? So we want to act on this. So this is a really great way to actually take all of this stuff and act on it and implement it, right? That's sometimes the hardest part. Oh, I can find all of this stuff on the internet. I can read books about it. Great. But why isn't there any change being made, right? Got to take that action first. Okay. So TFAR, we'll just stick with that for now. So it's a oversimplified process of just kind of what goes on in us when certain things disrupt us that might trigger negative thoughts or just unhealthy thoughts, unhealthy patterns. So we have a belief, right? So we have a belief, or it's some sort of experience, right? An experience that triggers the snowball effect of thoughts, feelings, actions, results. So we want to bring awareness first, right? And we want to work backwards. So thoughts, so we have our thoughts. So we have a belief or an experience that triggers thoughts. And our thoughts trigger feelings and emotions. And then our feelings and emotions influence our actions or inaction. There you go. Not doing something is still a choice, right? And then our actions is what creates our reality. It creates our results. What are we actually living, right? So bringing awareness first. We want to reverse engineer. And so the reason why we want to reverse engineer is because it's a lot easier to observe what isn't working in our life right now, right? And that's okay. Again, without judgment, as much as hopefully practicing that. But just observe, you know what? I'm just feeling stuck at work. I'm feeling stuck in my relationships, or, I'm not prioritizing my health as much as I should, or what results are just not serving you, right? You just want to write those out. And then taking that, unpacking that, right? We want to reverse engineer, peel back those layers. So what actions are leading to that undesired result? It could be like not honoring work-life boundaries. It could be, choosing to, kind of veg out or numb out on hours on the couch instead of, getting up and moving my body. It could be, drinking too much. It could be, anything, right? Just what are those actions? And then how am I feeling because of that? So what emotions, what feelings are influencing those actions? So it could be, lack of motivation, could be unworthiness, not feeling good enough, not feeling ready enough, not feeling prepared enough, right? Insecure. What are those feelings that are creating those actions? And then the last step. So what are those thoughts? What thoughts? This is that observation part. What thoughts are making you feel that way? Right? What thoughts are you telling yourself or talking about yourself, right? What are you telling or talking about yourself that is making you feel those things? Right? So then we want to change this pattern. We want to act. This is the action piece, right? So we can observe all day, every day. Yep, I know my thoughts are negative, but what are you doing about it? Right? So let's work on changing that pattern. Now, of course, this takes consistency and patience and a lot of failing and trial and error, but it's not impossible. But this is how we rewire our brain. This is how we build those habits, right? And habit building is something that I have researched a lot and I do a lot with, and this works. So changing your pattern. So what new result do you want? Well, I want to get that new job, or I want that raise, or, whatever it might be. What is that new result that you want? I want to feel healthy, confident. What is that? What actions are you going to take that are going to align with that desired result? So this could be a whole bunch of things. So this is where with my clients, we kind of write out this whole tree, right? We have this goal and we have all of these different milestones, these different action steps that can help us achieve that, because what works for me might not work for you. We want to take into consideration, our lifestyles, where we actually, just want to take in all these considerations, right? So then we want to, so from there, what feelings, what are we doing? What is influencing this, right? What is influencing these actions and these emotions? So then we can get to, here we go, the thoughts. What can I tell myself that's going to trigger a more positive feeling? Now, of course, this is not toxic positivity. This is not just telling ourselves, everything's fine. I'm fine. I need like a Ross Geller gif for this. I'm fine. Everything's fine. It's not that toxic positivity. This is processing, right? We're acknowledging what is not working. And this is all because these are these patterns, right? This is what goes on in our head. So we have a belief, right? Or an experience or something, someone says something to me. This is a lot of what I do with trigger work as well. And then we have this whole reaction, right? All these thoughts and then these feelings. And then we either react or we yell at the person or we don't do something and then we're stuck. And then we're stuck. And then we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And then those form new beliefs and those form new patterns and habits that are unserving. So by changing this, you can actually see that action. Yes, this is user-friendly. I can use it when speaking with children as well. Yes, Gabriella. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I've done this a few times and people have said this actually works with kids. And yes, it does. I love that. Good. Journal daily those thoughts over and over and change them with positive equals action. Yeah, great. Okay, so I know I kind of went through that pretty quick, but I want to make sure that we have time at the end for Q&A. I'll share this. I'll make sure we share this in our the recap that will go out. But try it. Really actually write these things out. I know it's easy just to kind of see it on here. And it's like, okay, I got it. I'm good. But writing things out, there's also so much science that shows that when you can actually write these things out and do them or say them out loud, it helps us to grasp them much stronger. All right. Any questions? I've been going pretty fast. Any questions? And has anyone, I think I asked that, but has anyone, now that we've gone through this, has anyone kind of recognized or maybe has done this in the past, or any questions? Wonderful. Okay, good. Yes, I cannot emphasize it enough. Might look pretty right here, but write it out. Do it for yourself. This is that action creates confidence, and that action also helps to break that loop, right? If it's negative, unhealthy thoughts, feelings, actions, results, by taking action that doesn't support that, it's like a cog in the wheel, right? Eventually it starts slowing down and we become more and more aware to actually change that pattern. Yes, with good managers. Question, is this a diagnosable thing? Like, is there a quiz we can take? Ooh, that's a really good question, Brian. So it's not necessarily a diagnosable thing. Let me save time for that, because I want to ask you some things about that. Let's save that for the end. That's another really, really great question. Yep, small steps, love it. Yeah, more in the form of what is stressing me out and seeing what I can do to change it. Yeah. You don't have to settle. You don't have to settle for, no, I'm unproductive, I'm a procrastinator, and that's just it, right? You can do something about that. Gabriella, I'm recognizing that if I'm not paying attention, I get stuck in the feelings phase. Oh, yes. And if I make a decision in the feelings phase, I have not allowed myself to process thoroughly. Well, that just summed up everything very nicely. Exactly. So then here's another part. So remember I said this is kind of, this is a little bit more high level, right? So sometimes we can get stuck in those thoughts, feelings, and then we just feel and we don't want to do anything about it. And then we just have those thoughts continue to kind of perpetuate, right? What to do next despite the tips. Elaine, difficult to follow. Don't know exactly what to do next steps. Okay. Oh, well, I will clarify that. So bringing awareness first. So writing these out, right? So what results are not serving me? Write that out. Actions, write that out. Feelings, thoughts, write that out. Changing your pattern, right? Thank you for encouraging me to take a step further. Writing those results and then getting to those thoughts, right? So then the action here is recognizing, okay, recognizing that this is what I need to do in order to start reframing those thoughts and continue to work through those. So just practicing them. And we're taking it a step further now, Elaine, promise. Okay, so to actually, let me go back. Let me see if I can go back for this. There we go. Okay, so changing your pattern. So what new results? So these thoughts, this is that action piece, right? So what thoughts can you start telling yourself? And observing how changing your pattern works. So writing out what thoughts do you need to start telling yourself to combat these imposter syndrome ones, right? And then focusing on the feeling and then acting it out and then seeing what results and then just trying it out. See what works, see what doesn't. I am going through this very quickly, again, for the sake of time, but this is something that if you're interested in, this is something that I do deep dives, much deeper than this with my clients. But again, for the sake of time, got to kind of speed through this a little bit. All right, so now we're going into this whole, so now we're taking all this information, now we're actually implementing. So now we're acknowledging these blocks and these challenges and these different processes that we need to go through. So now this is getting into actually combating and working through imposter syndrome as a whole. So first and foremost, again, this stuff, it's not necessarily mind-blowing, novel, brand new ideas. These are just things that I have observed in myself, in my years and years of coaching, my own research and my own clients, that we have all of these steps that seem pretty easy to do, but guess what? We don't always do them. So these might be reminders. I'm sure you've heard, some of you have heard this before, but again, action is what creates that change. So being kind to ourselves through all of this. It's really hard, especially when we have those negative thoughts just constantly going and going and going and telling us, we're not good enough, right? Practicing compassion. Compassion allows for growth. Compassion allows for change. It is so much easier when we have compassion is expansive. It is an expansive, loving emotion. And when we can have more of that compassion and that grace for ourselves, it allows us to better observe without the lens of scrutiny. It helps us to better, kind of take that action and fail, but then get right back up without berating ourselves, right? Compassion allows for so much growth. If we come to something with hate and anger, we're tight, right? We clench our fist, our heart is closed off, and the energy is just really, it's rigid, right? And if something doesn't fit, we self-sabotage and it just like combusts. But compassion allows for fluidity, flexibility, right? Observe how you talk to and about yourself. I can't stress this enough. I've talked about it a million times. Observe how you talk to and about yourself. And then also take it a step further. See how you accept compliments and things like that, because that's also goes back into tracking your wins, right? Okay, wouldn't it be great if we could treat ourselves like we would a friend, a coworker, or a child? Yes. Why is that so challenging? But you want to know what? Something that is really awesome. So when we figure out how to talk about ourselves is practice talking in third person. So this is what I do. I do this all the time, and my partner will vouch for it. If I'm really struggling with something, or I'm preparing for something that, I have that imposterism starts creeping up, I will talk to myself in third person, because as most of us here might experience, it's so much easier to provide that support and that love and that that space for other people. Why is it so challenging for us? And there is, I'm going to write this down. There is a study, many studies that show when we actually talk to ourselves in third person, it changes parts of our brain. It actually, we see like changes in our brain waves that actually allow us to absorb that and to receive that a lot easier. So practice it. Again, these things we might seem like, oh, that sounds kind of silly. Have you actually done it? Right? Let's practice that. All right, Claire. I keep a page of achievements, positive feedback. So when I'm triggered, I can reflect back to the notebook to counter my doubts as I can argue with myself, but not with the thoughts. Ooh, when the feelings are persistent, I'll start each day reflecting on this to make sure I challenge my negative thinking. It's becoming a very helpful habit. Yes, gosh. So there you go, right? Kind of simple, right? But it's just all about taking that first action. And just looking at that kind of feels good to look back at all of your wins and your achievements, right? They might not feel like anything in the moment, but when you can rack those up, that's awesome. With compliments, I try to remind myself that others do not have to say those kind things about me. They do so because they mean it. Yeah. I must decrease, he must increase. Yeah. All right. So compassion, just remember, compassion for any change. So this is a big one, revisiting our standards. Right. So we have, a lot of high achievers, right? We have these extremely high standards for ourselves, and we're working and working, we're hustling, and we're putting our health behind, we're putting things second that we actually do truly value. And we're working and working and working and so hard for all these achievements and these accomplishments. And then when we achieve them, we're just like, oh, what? Well, that wasn't, I thought I'd feel a little bit better than that. We want to ask ourselves, who are we actually, whose standards are these? Are these high standards my own? Or have they maybe been set by someone else? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, parents or caretakers, right? We have a lot of these standards, especially with, so I'm in my 30s. And, I grew up well before social media, well before mental health, well before therapy. Therapy was hush, hush, not cool. And it was a lot of that. Find your one job that is stable and successful and work towards it until you achieve it. At no cost, right? Has anyone who here has had high standards set for themselves? Maybe by their parents, by caretakers, by teachers, by mentors, by siblings, by friends, anyone. Yeah. So let's see. Yep. Yeah. By parents. Yeah. And then you're working towards all of these achievements and doing this and these sports and this group. And oh my gosh, I feel like my resume from high school was just insane because I had all these achievements, right? But then how do those serve us? If we're doing those, if we're working ourselves so hard to the point where we're second guessing our worth, we have to actually take a step back and whose standards are these? Are these standards helping me, or are they actually counterproductive? And when is good enough? So again, those are kind of, a little bit high level questions, but those are things to start asking yourself, right? Just start there. And then once you can uncover that, then we can start unpacking it a little bit more. Where do those stem from? What are those beliefs that have been ingrained in you or projected onto you from a young age that are creating all these undesired habits and all these undesired patterns, right? And that happens. I can't tell you how many, every single client, that I have ever worked with who said, oh my gosh, these standards are not my own, right? They're working so hard for these things and they don't know why. So even another question to ask yourself, why am I working towards these things? Why am I burning myself out to achieve this when all I'm doing is telling myself that I can't, right? Me, by my parents, myself too. Yeah. Athletic coaches. Oh goodness. Yes. I was an athlete my entire life, all the way up to college. And my goodness, I feel you on that. Yeah. Okay. When I achieve one goal, then I set another higher goal and keep chasing it. Yeah. And that's great, Heather. I love that. But remember, are these goals for yourself or for other people? And maybe they might be for the opinions of other people, might just be hustle culture in society. Oh my gosh. Yes. It's huge, right? I think maybe I would hope so. Maybe at least around here in the US Midwest that, this hustle grind, glorify burnout. Oh my God, I haven't eaten or, slept in days and I'm just I think we're kind of stepping away from that, but where it's not so glorified, but it's still kind of stuck in us, right? Still that hustle, right? I had, growing up, I had 3 jobs, putting myself through college, all that stuff, that hustle grind, but to the point of exhaustion doesn't serve us anymore. Lunch break is for the week. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Not taking your PTO. That's a huge thing. All these companies coming out saying that, unlimited paid time off, unlimited PTO, you can do whatever. But who in that company actually takes that PTO, right? So it's kind of a weird mind F with that. We have all this PTO. Have you actually taken it? I know. Eating lunch while work. Yes. Oh my gosh. Please eat lunch and enjoy it. Working weekend. Yes. All of that hustle culture. It's a lot, right? But we want to recognize, are these standards helping me or are they actually counterproductive? So now we're flipping the script, right? So this is kind of looking at imposter syndrome through this lens of it might not be something that is that bad, right? Now I say that, take that with a grain of salt because I know that it feels a lot, but the point of this is to show that our insecurities, so right here, insecurities and these imposterisms and these things that come up, what if they actually allow us to be more aware of what we get to improve, right? So like what I was saying before with those writing out those different thoughts and shifting those negative thoughts and those mindsets and, writing all of that stuff out, that also can help us to be aware of what we get to work on. So those imposterisms, imposter syndrome thoughts of, what, we can recognize that we might have some weaknesses, right? And that's okay because that self-doubt comes from, I might not have just developed a skill yet, right? So asking for that promotion or applying for that job, right? If there's something in there that can't apply that. I am not prepared for that. Well, instead of just running away from it, what if you actually was just like, okay, what can I learn here? What can I take from this? So what if we can use imposterism for motivation? And so a lot of that kind of that fear of that uncertainty, right? A lot of that fear of uncertainty is huge. But instead of fearing that uncertainty and trying to grasp, white knuckle our way through life and try and control everything, what if that uncertainty actually allows for possibility and growth, right? So kind of looking at these different things. So I have these notes here. So competent people have a tendency to underestimate their competence, which leaves them more open to improving. So same thing with high achievers and going after those big goals and those big, those big jobs and those big titles. But then we still have that imposter syndrome comes up. Well, guess what? Doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong with us. It just means that, hey, we can do this. We can actually achieve this. We just have the insecurities because we don't have that yet. So instead of having us run from that, lean into that. What's the skill that you need to make yourself feel a little bit more confident to apply for that job? Nothing wrong with that, right? So what if so kind of going through these, making sure oh my gosh, we are very close to time. Almost done though. What if this allows me, here you go. What if this allows me to learn new things as opposed to fearing them? Now getting a little bit more complex here. I was talking about that identity before. What if I separate my work from my identity? Who am I outside of my career? Because when we put so much emphasis and so much connection and we're so deeply embedded in our work and our achievements and everything, it becomes part of us, right? It's kind of like this whole work from home thing. It's kind of this whole lines are blurred, right? Same thing with when we're constantly put so much importance and so much emphasis on achievements. And if those achievements and those things don't actually align with what we think our identity is, well, that just is a whole kind of cluster F, right? That's a huge, one of the biggest triggers for imposter syndrome. So kind of exploring that, who am I outside of my career, my achievements and my titles and all that stuff, right? And that could be a little bit jarring. That could be a little challenging, but that's what coaches are for, right? So I was working on that. What if this is an opportunity for growth? What if I can actually learn something from these imposterisms? Yeah. Wow, I'm emotional. Thinking about the flip. Doesn't have to be scary, right? Doesn't have to be something that we can fear. It's definitely something that we can work through. The "you want too much" comment comes to mind, made by loved ones who move through life with a fear mindset. I just needed yeah. You want too much, or that's why are you going for that? No, settle down. Because yes, those people, fear mindset, fear of failure, fear of success. Fear of success is actually more common than you might think. Talk about what's important. Yes, what's important to you? At the end of the day, what's important to you? What do you value? And is your life, are you actually acting on those values, right? Are you actually, if you say I value health and family and friends and my weekends, but you're, working so hard to the point of burnout, well, what's the imbalance there, right? Okay, so now this is wrapping all of this up. So we have all of this observation and we know these things to work on flipping the script, right? So this is all the stuff that's in motion. This is the stuff that needs that patience and that consistency. So then we can kind of tie this all up with more encouragement to keep unraveling and untangling these imposter syndrome thoughts. So who's heard this before? I'm sure by the comments and the questions, you all have heard of affirmations in some way, shape, or form. But who has heard of affirmations, but with "I'm in the process of"? Oh, Gabriella, my response now is thank you for noticing that if I want it, I will hustle for it. Oh, I like that. That's good. All right. So who's heard of affirmation? Oh, actually, better question. Who practices affirmations? Just quick yes or no. Just curious. Because they help. Some people kind of, scoff at them, but again, so much of my coaching is all science-based. And there are endless studies to show that positive affirmations can, along with processing and healing and actually processing all of that stuff, right? Because there's a fine line between affirmations and toxic positivity, right? But after we go through all this stuff, positive affirmations to help, I'm in the process of deserving and feeling proud of my success. I am in the process of believing that I am enough. When we can give ourselves this "I'm in the process of," it allows for that work and that failure and to get back on and that trial and error to happen. Because if we just start saying, I am confident and secure in myself and my identity and my career, right? We're not there yet. We're not there yet, but we are in the process of. So it's just reassuring. Again, it's all this subconscious work, right? All this subconscious work that goes on in the back of our brains that we might not think it's working. It is, right? So I'm in the process of giving myself ease and grace to be wrong. So practicing this. Okay. I don't want to keep rushing through, but I definitely want to, yeah. Oh, so to wrap this up. So take this, right? So take this and fill in the blank, fill in your own. I'm in the process of. What's something that means something to you? What can you get up? What's going to get you excited to actually move through that? What's powerful? What's emotional enough? What's connected enough to you that this is your cue. Shift all of that. I've set a calendar appointment for first thing in the morning that is just affirmations to start my workday. Yes. Finding contentment and presence rather than relying on future achievement. Oh, Heather, presence is everything. When we are constantly worrying about the past or worrying about the future, that is creating so many cracks to allow for imposter syndrome to seep through. When we're present, fully present, we could acknowledge, oh, imposterism's creeping up, right? Okay, good. Okay, really quick, because I do want to get to those questions. So just for me, this is kind of more for me, but also for you guys, what is one thing that you learned today? And what's one commitment you're going to make for yourself? Just go ahead, share it in chat. I'm going to go back to those awesome questions from the beginning. And we can do Q&A. So we'll just, oh, sorry. Hi, Justice. Just kidding. I know we're running tight on time. If you want to, do you want to take over? Let's see. Okay, here. Just kidding. You guys please share what's one thing that you learned today. What's one commitment? And Justice is going to chat. And then I'm going to go back to those two awesome questions. And if you guys have any other questions, please put them in the chat. I will do my best to answer them. If we can't in the next 5 minutes, I'll just write out some answers to share in the recap. So, okay, good. Oh, TFAR, yes. Feel scared, but do it anyway. Yeah. Reinforcement of affirmations, yes. TFAR example, I'm in the process of, yes. I'm in the process of, so powerful. Idea of talking to yourself in third person, right? Don't worry about sounding silly. It really works. And also it helps just to remove yourself from the situation, right? Like, come on, Jill, let's do it. Feels a little bit different. Okay, amazing. All right, Justice, what do you have for us?
No worries. I just want to say thank you so much, Jill, for your time. I know there's a lot of really mindfulness things that I've taken away, and I'm sure we found a lot of helpful things throughout this. But that being said, if anyone really wants to have a deeper conversation to help combat imposter syndrome, gain confidence, self-confidence, or really just want someone to be there to help hold you accountable as you work towards achieving your goals, once again, I'm going to drop my consult link in here. So if you want to go ahead and schedule some time with me, feel free to. I'm also going to put my and Jill's emails. If you have some one-off questions or just want to learn a little bit more, feel free to do that. And then in addition, we also have our Eventbrite. We have weekly webinars. So I will send in the follow-up the link that you can use to follow in the schedule of the upcoming one. So if anyone has any future interest in other events, we'd love to see you again. But that being said, I guess we can just jump into the question and answer section now, Jill. So I think you have a couple real quick that you pulled.
Yeah. So one of those was, is this diagnosable? So really quick, Brian, if you are still on, I would just love to hear just really quick kind of what triggered that. Why do you feel that, or where did that question stem from? If you want to just elaborate a little bit. Brian's still there. I hope so. Sometimes I doubt that I have it. Oh, yeah. Okay. So great question. Yes. So imposter syndrome is not just kind of this blanketed thing that you always have it, right? It's these things that can be actually be triggered based on, yes, yep, there's always situations. And so I mentioned a lot of things that stem that trigger imposter syndrome or imposterisms is change. So it's either good or maybe we didn't ask for that change, right? So maybe getting fired or having to move or getting a new job, getting married. There can be positive things, right? But they tend to stem from something. So it's not necessarily something that can maybe kind of always be there, but it's not always going to be present, right? So again, going back to what I was saying before, is tracking the patterns. When do these imposterisms stem? When do they creep up? So that way you can use that to be like, okay, so maybe it's change. Maybe it's when I move. Maybe it's when it comes with my job or my work. So that's how you can recognize what it is that you need to change, right? Got to know what it is first. So I hope that at times I'm very confident. Others, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get discovered. Yes. And that's what I mean, Brian, by like, this is a lot for like ambitious, high achieving people. They are confident AF, but because of that, if there are certain things, because they're used to that, if there are certain skills or certain things that you might not be fully skilled or not know everything about, that is what triggers that imposterism. But then we can remember, flip that script. Don't say, I'm not worthy of that promotion or that job. I just have some other things to learn. Okay, awesome. So I hope that answered your question, Brian. I really like that. Okay, there was another question, and I knew I should have written it down. If someone has any other questions, or whoever that second person was that asked that really great question, I apologize. If we can't find it, or if we run out of time, I will find it in the chat and I will answer it in.
Is it the one about the
recap.
assessment?
About what?
It was, I think you had mentioned something about if there was an assessment we can take to see where we are in terms of, I think that might have been the one that you mentioned.
Oh yeah. Okay. If there was an assessment, that is a good question. I'm going to look. I'm sure there are quizzes for everything these days.
I think it was about humility, actually.
Oh, thank you. Yes. If it actually is just humility, or if it is imposter syndrome. So
also, it was the labeling meditation exercise.
Yes.
Someone had brought that up.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you. You guys rock. This is a really great group. I really like you guys. All right. Labeling meditation. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do for the sake of time, because we're at 2:00 and I really appreciate, I love all of you stepping in and helping me out here. Unfortunately, this is kind of the only downside of having so many people and a very, very active chat box is it's hard for me to track these. So what I'm going to do, any of these questions that were left unanswered, I will put them in the recap. So hopefully that is good. Any other questions? Does anyone have any other questions? I know this is a lot, right? This is a lot to kind of process and observe. So give yourself time to just kind of let all of this digest, look at your notes, or, kind of wait if you want to wait till, the recap or whatever might be. Let yourself kind of let all of this digest and see what are your commitments? What do you want to do from here?
Jill, we do have a question in the chat box that just came through.
Yeah.
Says,
Claire.
People say that the concept of imposter syndrome is putting blame on the person when it should be in the organizations, and that it is a way to repress some groups. I don't think that's the case, but I wonder what you think.
Okay. Some people say that the concept of imposter syndrome is putting blame on the person when it should be in the organizations. Claire, are you kind of talking more about, like at work, if you want? And I know people, we'll send the recording out. So if you have to drop, that's totally fine. Claire, if you have a few minutes to maybe hop on and kind of explain this a little bit more, I'd love to answer at least this one right now. If you want to just unmute yourself quickly and just elaborate a little bit.
So I have had, I'm Spanish originally. I worked in Europe, in Germany and Spain. When I moved here and I brought up the concept of imposter syndrome in some work environments, some people reacted like it was not, like it was something that was created and used in the past to kind of shift the blame into the people and the groups that would actually feel like they were not, it was like a way to say you are not, you're not good enough yourself. There's nothing that we can do about that. That's your problem. Figure it out. And in a way, a way to it was also in the context of diversity and inclusion and equality, whether that was some kind of a tool or had been some kind of a tool to to quiet somebody when they were asking for more in terms of the organization or whatever other position of power.
Yeah.
I'm explaining myself.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And, I think that, again, there's different concepts and there's different interpretations, different experiences, especially culturally with imposter syndrome. And because so much of it mostly tends to work in our careers and, our job practices, I think that, putting blame on someone, it is completely counterproductive. And when we tend to displace blame, that's hugely, because we're not taking responsibility, right? So if other people are putting blame on you, and that's what makes you feel like you're an imposter, well, that's a much different conversation, right? So that's working a little bit upwards. That's kind of like working up with our managers. But if that's recognizing, right? That's recognizing that the organization or your job or, your coworkers, whatever might be that trigger for that imposter syndrome, right? Or they might be, kind of creating those thoughts, those self-doubt thoughts. So one, again, without digging too much into this, is setting boundaries, right? Setting boundaries for ourselves to allow just to kind of be like, okay, I can't, whatever those boundaries might be. Or having conversations, with the organization and just saying, what, this is not healthy. This is not working. Right. So I hope that, I wish I could, keep digging into this, but again, for the sake of time, I hope that helps a little bit. Right. So taking that, acknowledging, what, there might be someone or something that is constantly triggering these imposterism thoughts. So setting those boundaries, I think is a good place to start.
And then Jill, we have one more question from Tatiana real quick. If you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, feel free to.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing. Thank you so much for this session. Just to clarify for what Clara was talking about, I just wanted to add one small point of oftentimes when discussing imposter syndrome, there's a lack of conversation around systemic issues and problems that oftentimes perpetuate the challenges that certain underserved communities oftentimes have to deal with, because it's not it's certain minorities who are consistently having to deal with these challenges and issues. And so I do understand where Clara's coming from, of talking about the ways that even the concept around imposter syndrome, the word itself is perceiving someone as being an imposter, which is almost impossible for someone to actually be an imposter if they're themselves, right? Like, if my name is Tatiana, I'm not an imposter being Tatiana, right?
Right.
But it does speak to how there are issues and problems with systems, right, and companies and organizations who oftentimes don't bring up these conversations, right? They don't support their talent who might be facing these type of struggles and issues. And so it continues to perpetuate spaces for imposter syndrome to come up and for that lack of accountability there. And so I recognize that there are things that we as individuals can do for ourselves in combating imposter syndrome as individuals, but also there are systems and organizations that don't allow for safe spaces for growth to happen there. And for that to be addressed and combated if there are certain people who continue to perpetuate the stereotype and put people in positions to feel inadequate and feel out of place and to not be supported and to perpetuate what imposter syndrome ends up, how it surfaces in different individuals. So I just wanted to bring that last point up, and I really appreciate the question, Clara. And thanks, Jill.
Yeah. Thank you, Tatiana, so much for stepping in and clarifying that. And Clara, thank you for that question. And that this is something, and thank you both for reminding me I'm going to include this and make sure that I speak to this next time, because I recognize that definitely is to constantly have that belief, that belief of not good enough, not qualified, not successful enough, whatever it might be, those imposters that are constantly being ingrained, especially with minority groups or, anyone that, might be in an organization where they don't allow that safe space. Right. And so this is a conversation that I would love, Tatiana, Clara, if this is something that you are both are open to, having a conversation about further, just to kind of share. I would really love to, because I do recognize that, yes, there is, systemic issues in organizations that are not allowing that safe space. Much different, kind of different conversations, right? Kind of working up. Thank you, Tatiana. I appreciate that. I'll be reaching out if you're okay with me just using your, the email that you used to sign up. Great. Okay. So with that, thank you both so much for that. Definitely addressing and being aware of that. And even just saying, maybe figuring out some different, practices, or maybe some different conversations or questions to be asked in the organization management on how to create a safer space. So thank you all. Thank you all so much for anyone who has stayed on. I so appreciate this. You all were so wonderful today. And I'm so grateful that I got to engage with all of you and answer all of your amazing questions. And thank you. Thank you for the support. I feel like everyone kind of jumped in and helped me out. I'm so grateful for that. Thank you. Oh, Heather. Okay. Last point. I grew up in Asian culture and highlighting individual is not encouraged. And I tend to focus on teamwork. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. I will definitely make sure to touch this next time I talk about this. So thank you all so much for bringing that to my attention. With that, all right, we are good to go. Justice, thank you so much for
Thank you everyone
staying
for
on.
coming, joining us on Wednesday. I hope you have a great
Thank
rest of your day and
you.
week, and reach out to us if you need anything from us.
Thank
Take
you
care,
all so
everyone.
much.